reflecting.
Who is the most consistent conservative candidate? The consistent track record has been consistent as a consistent conservative. Consistent conservative. Consistent conservative. Consistent conservative.
I find myself at the Basilica every Sunday morning. We're close to Sings. And I just have such a sense of comfort.
Chicken crab.
Godspeed.
Up your game. I never thought I'd hear a president of the United States talking about upping our game.
I think we're going to come away from this debate with two words: consistent conservative.
I think there's a little bit of trouble anybody competing with me on consistency.
And now, Mr. Know-It-All.
Muchas gracias, you rambunctious little bambinos. JD here. Good to have you on board. We thank you, as always, for taking some of your time to spend it with us here on the program where intellectual anarchy is encouraged and nurtured for now. Marcelo working the board, Brad producing the show. Neil's got the calls, emails at the website, and the poll question up there for you today. Fox News billed last night's debate as the last chance voters will have to make up their mind on a candidate before the all-important Iowa caucuses on January 3rd. What do you say to this? 31% say it's cemented your support for someone, and 47% say it's too early to decide, need more information. Now, as we've been talking about on the program, I was ready to come forward today and throw my endorsement, my support for what it's worth behind Ron Paul. And I said yesterday on the program, I'm going to watch the debate, and if Fox News thinks it's so important that I make a decision today based upon the debate last night, which they want you to do because Gingrich is leading. We know Fox and Hannity and others like him are shilling for Newt Gingrich. They want you to come to that conclusion. Ignore things, play up other things. Last night, Ron Paul's performance in the debate left me with questions about Iran, his foreign policy, and instead of trying to do what a lot of people do in my business, which is to dismiss things that are inconvenient to the person that they're shilling for or a person that they're supporting, I wanted more information about Ron Paul's policies with regard to Iran, Israel, and what his overall foreign policy stance is. So instead of doing a dance, we're welcoming to the program Bruce Fein, who is the senior policy advisor to Ron Paul. Mr. Fein is author of Constitutional Peril, The Life and Death Struggle for Our Constitution and Democracy. He's an associate deputy attorney general, former counsel to the Joint Congressional Committee on Covert Arms Sales to Iran, scholar at the American Enterprise Institute, constitutional and international law expert, and he joins us on the program. Mr. Fein, welcome.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Now, in what I've been reading that people have been sending me and what people have been saying as they've been calling today throughout the program, Mr. Fein, is that it wasn't Ron Paul's best night. He had a less than stellar performance. There's nice ways of saying it wasn't. He didn't hit it out of the park. And as I was rereading your piece from the Daily Caller on December 6, 2011, billions for defense, but not 1 cent for empire. What you wrote about what Ron Paul's policies, beliefs, and foreign policy is didn't seem to translate last night in the debate. So what happened?
Well, the debate is often a pressure cooker when you're worried about how much time you've got to articulate very complex ideas. And sometimes, you're not Demosthenes or Cicero when you'd like to be. But I don't see any inconsistency between the underlying themes that Ron Paul has voiced and continues to voice and what was set forth in my article, Billions for Defense, not 1 cent for empire, and Ron being hawkish on defending America, but not hawkish on defending Iranians or defending Iraqis or Afghanis and playing policeman to all of the world. And as you well know, it's oftentimes very, very important. A choice of a word here or there on television makes an enormous impact that is far greater than any philosophical difference that would be understood if it was explained in a little different way. And I do believe that occasionally happens in debate context, but I do not believe.
Right, and on this program, excuse me, I hate to interrupt. On this program, we've given a pass to Rick Perry for his oops moment because sometimes you just can't make the connection and it doesn't come out. And with Herman Cain with Libya, maybe he probably was tired and it just wasn't firing. So last night it wasn't firing. But words do matter. Last night, Frank Luntz in the aftermath on with Hannity said that Ron Paul destroyed himself in the second half because Republicans want a strong military, and by, I guess, default, the assumption could be made that Ron Paul doesn't want a strong military. Your response to that?
Well, I think that's an incorrect assumption, and I think it may be occasionally he's overcorrecting for the very aggressive attitude and policies of all the other rivals to project the United States military in every corner of the planet. But that's ridiculous to suggest Ron Paul does not believe in a very strong military. He just wants to make sure the military is defending the United States and the United States' interest in people, not the interest of being a global policeman everywhere in the planet. And he certainly believes in a defense capable of incinerating any country who would have the audacity to attack us. Deterrence works. Deterrence is part of his understanding of how you defend the United States. Deterrence is not preemptive, self-anticipatory defensive warfare everywhere around the planet. And that's one of the reasons why Ron has attracted enormous support from veterans. It is not simply, code pink. If even I don't even know whether they do support Ron Paul. But the idea that he wants to leave the United States defenseless is absurd. He's the one candidate up there who, in fact, has done military service and certainly believes that we should be invulnerable from any aggression from abroad. But he doesn't want us to feel that we are endowed by some manifest destiny to go around the world and force our way of life on everyone else.
In your piece at the Daily Caller, you say Ron Paul's foreign policy would be an adaptation of the Founding Fathers' creed saluted in the Constitution's preamble. Now, a lot of the Republicans say, I'm a constitutionalist, I'm a strict constitutionalist. Ron Paul, probably the most consistent constitutionalist and consistent conservative. And you say this would be billions for a common defense, but not 1 cent for extravagant preemptive wars seeking world domination, a risk-free existence, and a planet purged of tyranny and sin. There are a lot of people that are trying today to weaken Ron Paul's position to help them shill for who it is that they want you to vote for. But there's a disconnect between the foreign policy, and it's been permeated over time, whether it's the comments that he hates Jews, that he would just abandon Israel, that he's an isolationist. These are things that get thrown around that become a part of the commonality of the language that works to the disservice of Ron Paul if you come to know what his foreign policy is. Let's address some of those with regard to, let's start with Israel.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say that he would abandon Israel. In fact, we sell more weapons and give more money to Israel's enemies than Israel. And Ron Paul has said, quite accurately in my judgment, hey, Israel needs, we should leave Israel free to decide its own national security interests, its own sovereign interests. We should not give money to their enemies, and we don't need to give money to Israel. It's not an impoverished nation. And we let Israel, and if Israel feels it needs to do something with regard to Iran, it's just like we would decide whether we needed to do something at the Cuban Missile Crisis with the Soviet Union. We should not be in the business of telling Israel how it should run their foreign policy. If anything, it was, I believe, under George Bush where the signal was sent, if you want to send airplanes that would be targeting some of the nuclear facilities in Iran, you can't use Iraqi airspace. And we were still running Iraq at the time more thoroughly than today. Ron Paul is not going to interpose the United States against what Israel thinks is necessary to protect its interests. And I think it would be very difficult to claim that in December of 2011, Israel doesn't demonstrate the weaponry, the armament, the skill and defense to make certain its sovereignty is not going to be destroyed or harmed. Deterrence works everywhere in the world.
With regard to what we hear about Ron Paul, for those who don't know his policy position, with regard to nation building and sending American troops to defend Israel, they say, well, you see, he's turning his back on Israel. I want to share with people, Mr. Fein, the comments that were made by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This was in May of this year in an address before Congress. This is what Netanyahu said. My friends, you don't need to do nation building in Israel. We're already built. You don't need to export democracy to Israel. We've already got it. You don't need to send American troops to defend Israel. We defend ourselves. Isn't that the same position that Ron Paul has as the Israeli prime minister does?
Exactly. There isn't a syllable of difference between those words and Ron Paul's view as well. So this is what I think it's just nonsense to suggest that he's somehow an obstacle to the interest of Israel and its sovereignty and its prosperity as a country. If anything, as I say, he'd stop the billions, the tens of billions that we're now showering on the Persian Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, any of these countries that, again, we're trying to prop up for various and sundry reasons, access to oil or otherwise. And that in some sense is the greater danger, because we're selling them weapons right and left, In the middle of Bahrain's suppression of the Shias, we're sending them and selling them additional aircraft, F-16s and whatever. And I think Israel would be better off if we just stayed out of that area with regard to our military presence and let them fend and defend themselves, which they are quite capable of doing.
Bruce Fein is with us. He's the senior policy advisor to Ron Paul. Mr. Fein, there's a lot of questions that people are sending me on emails. Do you have a couple of extra minutes to spend with us? I know you're extremely busy in the aftermath of the debate and the campaign trail and all that, but if we could go to a break and bring you back to go to the bottom of the hour, would that be possible?
Yeah, yes, it would be, because I do believe that some of these myths that have built up around Ron Paul on defense clearly need elaboration, in part because it's not just this year. I think it's over a period of long years where it's more difficult to undeceive people.
And you also look at the fact that Ron Paul was not invited to the Republican-Jewish Coalition debate, even though Ron Paul has the same position on Israel as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. One of the things I want to address when we get back with Bruce Fein is the issue of isolationism, that Ron Paul is an isolationist, and that's going to work to the detriment of us in our ability to defend ourselves around the world. Bruce Fein with us, senior policy advisor to Ron Paul. RonPaul2012.com is the website. The phone number here is 800-876-4123. I'm Jerry Doyle. Stick with us. We'll be right back.
This. Does the establishment think that they can influence Tea Party members? And is there not a subtle campaign, and I think there is, to look, we all know Newt Gingrich. I know every candidate's strengths and weaknesses. You know them. Right. We can cite them verse and chapter. You know what? But it's not going to be anybody but the voters that decide. And I think people that are trying to influence us in a way, I think they're making a big mistake, because I think it's getting a lot of people angry.
You mean like you, Sean Hannity? Did you see him catch himself there when he was shilling for Newt Gingrich? Look, I know all the candidates. These people are trying to be the deciders in chief as to who you supposedly get to choose. And this Fox organization that's gone out of its way, O'Reilly, Hannity, CNBC, CBS, all dissing Ron Paul because of a lot of misconceptions about who he is as a candidate and what his beliefs are with regard to threats that we face as a nation and foreign policy. Back on the program with us, Bruce Fein, senior policy advisor to Ron Paul, author of Constitutional Peril. Mr. Fein, welcome back.
Thank you.
With regard to isolationism, people would say that he's putting the nation in peril because he doesn't believe that there are real threats out there. You write in your piece at the Daily Caller on December 6th, Ron Paul would embrace a retaliatory capability sufficient to destroy every living thing in any country complicit in an actual or imminent attack on the United States. Sounds good, but when you hear the messages that he's weak on national defense, they'll give him the economy, but he's weak on national defense. How do you overcome that?
Well, we just have to be more and more explicit about how when it becomes to defending the United States, Ron is the greatest hawk there is. He's not a hawk on defending Afghanistan and Iraq, etc. And this idea that deterrence doesn't work is just nonsense. Deterrence worked even in the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union flinched with a huge amount of nuclear arsenal. And there's no reason to think that even crazy and unstable states like North Korea or Iran, and Iran certainly does not favor Iran acquiring any nuclear weapon. We didn't favor North Korea acquiring a nuclear weapon. We didn't favor Pakistan acquiring a nuclear weapon. They do. And The question is, will deterrence deter them if they're promised to be incinerated from using any weapon like that against the United States of America? And all history shows, then in fact deterrence does work. And even the mullahs in Iran, as crazy as they may be, they did negotiate the release of our hostages in the embassy in the 1980 and 81. They did stop the Iran-Iraq war, even though many thought the Ayatollah Khomeini was crazy and he was sending kids in to fight, and they negotiated an end to the war started by Saddam Hussein. When we shot down one of their civilian airliners, the USS Vincennes, they negotiated reparations rather than attacking the United States. Well, despite all the rhetoric, they act like other nations do. None of them want to get incinerated and destroyed. They want to cling to power. And Ron Paul is one who embraces really this idea of Thomas Jefferson: peace, commerce, and honest friendship towards all nations, and war only if you attack us. And that's what we've got to get out of this mental framework that views the entire planet as places of danger imminently threatening our sovereignty. And it's not to suggest that they're all pacific, angelic regimes abroad. There are horrible regimes abroad. That's why we need an absolute invincible defense that says whatever else you do to your people, and we don't applaud evil anywhere. But the fact is, we as a government are only responsible for protecting Americans on American soil, which is what we will do unswervingly, and that is exactly what George Washington and our founders thought the purpose of a common defense was. Not preemptive warfare, but defending the United States and making clear anyone who had the audacity to attack us would no longer be a country.
I appreciate you taking the time, Mr. Fein, to come on the program with us and give us the extra minutes that you did. Bruce Fein is the senior policy advisor to Ron Paul. Read his piece at the Daily Caller, December 6, 2011, Billions for Defense. It'll give you a better understanding of what Ron Paul's foreign policy is. Mr. Fein, on the program, we talk about going from combat to commerce and how the money is in the medicine. It's not in the cure. And I believe, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who figured out there's a lot more money in commerce than there is in combat. And we should have been out of Iraq a long time ago as victors. And we should have been out of Afghanistan, even if we went in the first place, as victors a long time ago. But a lot of money is being made along the way, and that's to the detriment of our men and women that are serving this country. Bruce Fein, thank you, sir. RonPaul2012.com is the website. Daily Caller is the place where you can get the piece. I'm Jerry Doyle. Stick with me.
Jerry Doyle. This is the Jerry Doyle Show.
Well, pretty much the emails are asking the question, so are you ready to endorse Ron Paul? No, I have to think about it. I have to think about what Bruce Fein said. I want to go back again and reread his article, December 6th, from the Daily Caller. I want to go take a look at statements that have been made by Congressman Paul and statements that have been made about him, and it takes time. And I think that's only a fair assessment of trying to figure out who it is. And when you take a look at Ron Paul, as we talked about, on the Fed, monetary policy, the U.S. dollar, the housing bubble, I mean, spot on. And people are saying, yeah, but he's weak on national defense. Well, if you listen to Bruce Fein and you read what they write and you read his policy statements, then he's not weak on foreign policy. So it helps you to come to a conclusion. But it's not instantaneous. It's a process that a lot of people want to speed up for you and try and zoom you into thinking something other than what you might. Carrie, line 7. Thanks for holding. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you. I don't like him at all. I follow world news and news in general, and I've read many of his quotes about Israel. His economic policies are basically sound. The problem is he has called Israelis occupiers. He has called them, they're saying basically they're an apartheid state. They discriminate, and it was not very nice. And it was a direct quote. I don't trust the man, and he wants to make nice. Have you ever tried being Iran's friend? Excuse me, Chamberlain did that with Hitler, and look what it got us.
Wow, you're throwing a lot of big words around. Let me ask you this. Is Barack Obama an appeaser?
Yeah.
Okay, Barack Obama gave the go-ahead to kill the Somali pirates that took the captain of the USS Alabama hostage. Killed him. Obama gave the go-ahead to have the drone strike on al-Awlaki. Dead. Obama gave the go-ahead to kill Osama bin Laden. Dead. So the appeaser seems to be the one that's killing the bad guys when the supposed strong on military guys are talking about it. Obama's doing it. How do you reconcile that, Carrie?
Well, I can reconcile it because he wants to get elected. He's playing this game this last year. His polls are down, and he figures if he makes like a strong guy, he can go back to this kissy face stuff where he's bowing to other leaders. He wants to be elected. Let me tell you, the economy is bad.
Hold on. Hold on. The president of the United States, who's risen to the pinnacle of the political structure in the United States, is delusional in thinking that he wants to get reelected? I mean, do you hear yourself? What is he supposed to do? One and done? I'm out of here?
No, he's playing he wants to appear as a strong commander-in-chief. So he says, man, if I take out a bunch of these bad guys, people are going to think I'm wonderful. That is not going to help him get reelected, though. The problem is that happened with Bush Sr. He thought after Kuwait, I'm a strong military leader. Bang, he was thrown out. No, the economy, we're suffering from stagflation. It's not going to help him. The only reason he went after the bad guys, rather than haul them in and put on a kangaroo show trial, like he tried to do with the Gitmo guys, is because it would drop his ratings even further. He's playing a political game. That's my stance.
But his base, Carrie, his base is don't kill anybody. Don't detain anybody at Guantanamo. So who's he trying to win over? Republicans or Democrats? Conservatives or liberals? Who's he playing to if he's alienating his base by being a cowboy that George Bush used to be until George Bush started apologizing for being the cowboy that I liked?
Well, I have no idea. You'll have to talk to the man and ask him. But I think the guy is, frankly, I don't think he knows what he's doing. First it was shut Gitmo down, then he keeps it open. Then it was, let's put this guy on trial in New York, and everybody blew up about it. So he changed. He keeps changing to, let's bring the polls up. Let's make people happy. He doesn't know what he's doing. He really does.
Okay, so, all right, let me ask you this. If Iran launches a preemptive strike on Israel, an unprovoked strike, because of the anticipation that Israel might launch on them, should we send American troops in to defend Israel?
No. And I don't think Israel wants that. As far as many Israelis are concerned, what I have read, this is their voice, not mine. They think basically Americans are chicken. During the Kuwait crisis, when they were Saddam was lobbying rockets into Israel, trying to get them to respond, they were just going, Americans a bunch of cowards. They should let us get in there and fight and kick this guy's butt. And we said no. We stopped them. So no, I think Israel will be the first one to say, keep out of it. Let us do it our way. Let us take care of it, and we will take care of it.
That's exactly what the policy is of Benjamin Netanyahu. That's exactly what he said to Congress in May of this year. You don't need to send American troops to defend Israel. We defend ourselves. You don't need to do nation building in Israel. We're already built. You don't need to export democracy to Israel. We already have it. That's exactly the position that Ron Paul has, which is the same position as Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So how is it that Benjamin Netanyahu is right on Israel, but Ron Paul's wrong?
No, my point is, he has called Israelis occupier. He's talked about them practicing discrimination against Muslims. He has basically libeled their names on several occasions, and I have read these. This is direct quote.
All right, well, you know what? I will, Carrie, if you send it to me at jerrydoyle.com, I will read it, and I will consider it. But all I know is what I read, what I hear, that I can play in audio format, and what people say when they come on the program. I'm dealing with people as they present the material to me, and I'm taking them on their word for what they say if they have a track record and are consistent to back it up. But what I'm seeing from our efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan is that we're not serious about winning wars. We're not serious about going in and doing what we're capable of doing. Do you know the war in Iraq is over?
You know what?
Do you know the war in Iraq is over, Carrie? How did we leave Iraq? With a whimper? And why were we there so long? Who was making the money, Carrie? Who was making the money? Did we go from combat to commerce? Is the money in the medicine? Why did it take so long for us to get out of Iraq?
Okay, listen carefully.
Don't tell me what to do. I'm asking you a question. Why did we stay so long in Iraq and leave with a whimper?
I agree with everything you're saying. Here is why. Since World War II, we got in Korea. We allowed the UN to stop us at the 38th parallel. We did the same with Vietnam. We let them stop it. We haven't fought a war since World War II to win. We have not fought a war for unconditional surrender since World War II. And that's what we should have done in Afghanistan.
Why haven't we? You're right. We haven't. But why haven't we?
Money. I agree with you.
Money. Hello. And what is Ron Paul's concern? That we have hundreds of bases around the world and hundreds of thousands of troops stationed around the world. We're defending everyone else's nation, their sovereignty, protecting them from any and all opposition. And our guys and gals are dying to protect them when we should have them back here to protect us. And then if anybody messes with us, we have the sign that says, I don't call 911, I call the morgue. And we send out our troops and we bomb them into the Stone Age. Not that you'll be able to tell in Iraq or Afghanistan. Before and after pictures look pretty much the same. And then we pull back and we say, now that we've done that, who else has a bright idea to dare to mess with the United States of America?
Okay.
That's Ron Paul's, that's his strategy.
In Europe. Well, our troops shouldn't be in Europe. Europe should pay for its own defense. That's costing us.
And that's the same thing that Ron Paul thinks. We shouldn't be in South Korea. We shouldn't be in Germany. We don't need to be building another military installation in Australia.
My point.
Why are we building a military installation in Australia, Carrie? Why? Why are we down there in Darwin?
Got me. The point.
Because it's about money. Because if you go back and you look at a speech that Hillary Clinton gave about 3 weeks ago in Hawaii, she was talking about the economic interests we have in the region. And we have to protect those economic interests. And we are now sending our Navy to Australia to protect our financial interest in the region. Not that we shouldn't protect those financial interests, but we're using our military to be the mall guards so nobody steals a purse from Nordstrom's. No offense to the military. Thanks for the call, Carrie. Do you get it, folks? The money's in the medicine. It's not in the cure. We shouldn't have soldiers in the green zone in Baghdad that are protecting a hotel and a golf course that they can't play on. They're there to protect the economic interests. We're talking about billions of dollars that have gone missing and tens of billions of dollars that have been made for corporations that figured out that what soldiers used to do, which is dig latrines and peel potatoes as part of what they do when they're trying to kill the bad guys and blow stuff up, is something that we can make a ton of money off. That's disgusting. Disgusting thought that we would go from combat to commerce. I want to go back to what Kerry was talking about with World War II. I want to go back to signing ceremonies. I want to go back to days where when the war was declared over and we were the victors, a guy could walk down the street and cop a feel, and he could grab a broad and he could kiss her on the lips. That's what I think. We should be winners. They should be losers. We should be the victors. They should surrender. We should say we won. They should say we lose. They sign the paper, and then we help them rebuild their country. That's what we should be doing, but we're not doing it. Why? Because somebody is making a whole lot of money selling patriotism, and that stinks.
Jerry Doyle.
800-876-4123 is the number. We'll wrap it up when we get back. Stick with me.
Jerry Doyle. This is the Jerry Doyle Show.
Hey, David in Utah on line 1. KKAT. David, thanks for holding. Welcome to the show. What can I do for you?
Welcome. One quickie. A couple of your bumper commercials. I can just listen to you, and I don't have to worry about depression or anxiety. I just love it. I listened to your piece, and I'm just going, finally, somebody's got it. I was one of those people on the fence with Ron Paul because of his stuff, and the more I've listened, and I've read some of those articles you've talked about, and I'm going, he's not such a bad guy. And, and I listened to you talk to the person, I'm going, okay, I don't have to worry anymore. I'm on the right track. And I just, I moved to Utah in January, came back here from away, and, everybody here is LDS, and, and Mormons that are running, they kind of like them, but I'm going, they're all wishy-washy. And when you find somebody like Ron Paul who's committed, yeah, some people don't like what he's done, but he's committed. He's got some standards. He hasn't bent in 30 years, and when he has questions,
Consistent.
He does what he does and goes.
Consistent. I know you're not meaning that the Mormons are squishy, that you mean the Republican candidates are squishy. But Ron Paul has been consistent. We talked about, and I appreciate the call, David, we talked on a program about consistency, and I asked the question, I think it was on December 5th, how do you beat a consistent socialist, which is what Obama is? You beat a consistent socialist with a consistent constitutionalist, a consistent conservative. That's how you do it. I can tell you what Obama's going to do. I can tell you why he's going to do it. Because his ideology is rooted in 60s radical, collectivist, redistributionist ideology. That's where it comes from. So when people say, I'm shocked to believe he's trying to go around, he shouldn't be. Nothing he does outside of whacking bin Laden and al-Awlaki should surprise you, because he telegraphs based upon how he's wired. I've said on the program, Barack Obama cannot betray his DNA. He's a 60s radical. The 60s radicals that have infiltrated universities, schools, classrooms, textbooks, Hollywood, imaging, everywhere. It's everywhere. They kicked off the Birkenstocks. They put on the Brooks Brothers suit. They make a nice Windsor knot, and they come out and they say, hey, look, we're you. No, they're not. They're 60s radicals that look like mainstream, but they're not. Ron Paul has been consistent for decades in the problems that we face, and he's proven himself to be especially prescient in regard to the financial meltdown, which I was reading about today with the International Monetary Fund. They said, Monetary Fund, that it's going to get worse, that the worst is still to come. How is that possible with the trillions of dollars that we've printed and spent? Don't have to worry about this. Don't worry about that. We have the tools necessary to get the economy to do what's necessary. No, they don't. And if they do, I don't trust them to use them at the right time. Inflation is in the system. You can't put $7.7 trillion overseas, printed money here. You can't put $2.2 trillion backing up bogus banks and credit default swaps and mortgage-backed securities and not see it affect the system. And I've been following Ron Paul for a long time on monetary issues. And he and I are lined up in sync.